Today I'm going to look at Corrosion of Conformity's album called Wiseblood, and how it still rocks after all these years. I actually just listened to this recently, so it's relevant to me. I'm 40 years old, and I'm seeing how old some albums are, which puts that number in perspective. Corrosion of Conformity's Wiseblood is just such an album. It came out in 1996 when I was about 14 years old. It's hard to believe it, but that makes this album itself about 24 years old. In any case, this album holds up extremely well for me. I don't think there's a single stinker track on it. I first heard songs from it on DirecTV's satellite music channels, probably both their alternative and metal categories, and I instantly knew it was a worthwhile album. Sure enough, I bought it the first time I could on compact disc, and surely gave it a listen right away when I got home. I knew very little about the band or what the album meant. I just thought it rocked. For those interested, it's apparently named after the novel by Flannery O'Connor, who I only heard about later in college as a literature major. Looking at that fact now, I can see that these guys were probably literate, presumably defying the stereotype of the moronic metalhead or punk rocker. Corrosion of Conformity actually started out as a hardcore punk band, then branched off into other musical terrain. And there is a Metallica connection with this band and with this album. One commonly noted fact about the album: Metallica's James Hetfield provides vocals for the track Man or Ash. It's interesting because for some time, I disparagingly and snobbishly would call Corrosion of Conformity a really good version of Metallica. I was a bit of an elitist. At the time, Metallica was everywhere, and it wasn't the relatively better-sounding old-school Metallica either, but the relatively mellower, cornier, alternative Metallica that emerged after the Black Album, and some would say with the Black Album. But actually, I've become more of a Metallica fan nowadays. And James Hetfield does nothing to harm this track, and perhaps it lingered in my mind as a reason to not totally hate Metallica. It's why I can appreciate some of their songs nowadays, at least partly, though I'll admit their anti-Napster shenanigans really made a lasting negative impact. Anyway, the song Man or Ash is pretty heavy indeed, and has sort of a thrash thing going on. Much of the rest of the album isn't like that, but it definitely adds to the diversity of flavor and tone. This band is clearly aware of the importance of using different guitar and bass tones for building different thematic layers within a song. So let's look at some of the songs themselves. One of the key tracks from the album, Drowning in a Daydream, was nominated for a Grammy for Best Metal Performance, though it lost to Tool's also great Anima song. While I don't care much for the Grammys, it does demonstrate that the song made an impression on people. It's one of the mellower tracks on the album, though it contains a decent amount of angst. Most importantly, it feels like the band was sincere in crafting it, like they weren't catering too much to genre and being themselves. Other standout tracks: there's King of the Rotten, which opens the album up. Quite simply, this is a catchy, relatively straightforward rock song. After hearing this, you pretty much know the band's style, but it's a style that allows for many different things to occur. The second track is Long Whip / Big America. This begins as a country meets hard rock song, apparently about religious hypocrisy, wealth, and related crimes, and ends up with some catchy thrash elements toward the end, complete with memorable guitar solo. I occasionally have the part where he sings "No More, No More" stuck in my head, though I don't find it annoying. It's kind of a pleasant sort of song to get in my head. It's definitely one of the catchier, most headbanger parts of the album, and I love when a band is both heavy and damn catchy at the same time, which is frankly often a lost art nowadays. Also, that there's Goodbye Windows. It's a hard song to describe. It doesn't sound like a standard southern rock tune, yet somehow carries the same feel. Basically, it's hard rock blues with an angsty chorus of "I'd rather have holes in my eyes than to watch your soul paralyzed." It's a unique song. There isn't really that much that I could say really sounds like it. It's just Corrosion of Conformity. My favorite ballad tune from Wiseblood is Redemption City. Honestly, it sounds pretty similar to Goodbye Windows and Drowning in a Daydream, yet it retains a natural feel that's so common to Corrosion of Conformity. Things fall into place so naturally in the song, yet it retains a rawness. I like the shimmering guitars, the wah parts, and how the acoustic adds a gentle percussive quality that supplements the rhythm section. Finally, I'll mention Bottom Feeder, which is really a chance for the band to stand out as a band rather than merely as songwriters. Many angles and nuances of their musical talents are explored in this instrumental. You have the hard rock parts, the southern elements, weird dual guitar leads and sounds, pig samples, a frequently swinging bass line, and both subtle and sledgehammer moments. Honestly, I miss the era when one could not only rock commercially, but almost felt obligated to include instrumentals on albums. Like, remember when that was more of a thing? Now it's almost all about the singer, with the band taking the back seat, if there even is a band, and usually what the artist sings about is boring and generic, and not very creative. With an instrumental, a band has to tell a story through the sound itself, and Bottom Feeder does that. So in summation, I'll say Corrosion of Conformity's Wiseblood is a decent introduction to not only the band, but to hard rock in general. In an age overly saturated in bubblegum pop, it's pretty amazing how much catchier most of these songs are, to my ear at least, than most of what's out there today. So that's why I enjoyed it, and that's why I want to talk about it. So, yeah.